Hi everybody, Kyle here from Reliability Technology Solutions. Today I'm talking about how ransomware ends up on your network and what you can do to protect yourself from ransomware. There are a few ways that ransomware can end up on your network. The number one method that you tend to hear about is email. I mostly agree with that. While email is one of the biggest attack vectors for ransomware, whether it's phishing or just a malicious attachment, in my opinion, for small businesses, email is actually the second most popular way that ransomware ends up on their network. The most common way tends to be from poorly configured remote access solutions. More specifically, opening up the Remote Desktop Protocol or RDP to the internet to allow anyone to get in. There are services that allow hackers to search for Remote Desktop Protocol connections. Hackers will then start brute forcing that open connection to crack the password. While remote access and email are the two most common ways that ransomware ends up on a network, it can also be spread through software vulnerabilities. The most famous example would be the WannaCry attack in 2017. WannaCry spread without any user interaction through a Windows to file sharing vulnerability known as Internal Blue, which was developed by the NSA and then later leaked by a group of hackers. So how do you protect against ransomware? Well, this is kind of a multi-pronged approach. There is no one solution that will prevent ransomware from getting into your network. Likewise, this cannot purely be a technology solution. Training is required as well. Starting on the technical side, as I mentioned earlier, the most common way that I've seen for small businesses is poorly configured remote access. Rather than allowing a direct remote desktop connection to the internet, you should be using something like Microsoft's Remote Desktop Gateway or preferably a VPN. Microsoft's Remote Desktop Gateway is essentially a web front end to Remote Desktop that requires user authentication before they actually get access to your internal network. This, when combined with account lockout policies as well as two-factor authentication, can greatly reduce the chances that a remote access solution will allow ransomware to get into your network. A VPN allows a remote computer access to an external network. It uses strong encryption to ensure that no data between that computer and the network is intercepted. Like the remote gateway, it requires authentication before the user gets access to the network. When you again combine it with an account lockout policy and two-factor authentication, it greatly reduces the odds that your remote access solution will be used to install ransomware on your network. One big benefit that VPNs have over Microsoft's Remote Desktop Gateway is that it does not use Microsoft's IIS web server, thus reducing the footprint and potential vulnerabilities that are out there. I'll be covering two-factor authentication in greater detail in another video. Email is the next major attack vector, and this is where technology has to go hand in hand with training. On the technical level, anti-spam and anti-phishing platforms will block many of the malicious emails that come into your network in the first place. If you have Microsoft 365 email, for instance, the advanced threat protection platform that Microsoft offers is a must-have. But this is just one layer of protection. Training is required so staff can identify and spot malicious emails and not open them in the first place. IT providers can use third-party platforms such as KnowBe4 to run simulated phishing campaigns in order to train staff to recognize what suspicious emails look like and identify those that need further training. The last major area of focus is staying up to date with your technology. By the time that WannaCry hit the internet, Microsoft had already released a patch for supported Windows operating systems. So the only people that were impacted by WannaCry were those that weren't up to date or those running outdated operating systems. And yet WannaCry still managed to infect over 300,000 computers. An estimated 98% of infected computers were running Windows 7, which at the time had a month-old patch that would have prevented WannaCry from working in the first place. Using supported software and hardware, as well as staying up to date with all the security patches, will greatly decrease how vulnerable to ransomware you are. Endpoint detection and response, or EDR programs, are essentially the next generation evolution of antivirus programs. Rather than just scan files for known viruses as traditional antivirus programs did, EDR will monitor endpoints and networks for suspicious behaviors and are able to detect and block a wider range of threats. The thing to remember with EDR and antivirus programs is that they're a last line of defense. If ransomware is blocked by EDR or antivirus, that's great. But that does mean that something went wrong earlier on that allowed the ransomware to get onto the computer in the first place. And that's all for today. Thank you so much for watching. Please let us know on Twitter or Instagram at Reliability Tech what you thought of this video or whatever topics you'd like us to cover in future videos. If you're interested in the services that Reliability Technology Solutions has to offer, please check us out online at reliabilitytech.ca. Thank you. Have a great day.